and welcome to Dressmaking Amore. Today I want to share with you how to sew an elegant A-line mini dress with a cute little slit. Now, personally, I love a charming tweed dress. It's so refined and elegant while still being minimalistic in the shape and the form. So inspired by iconic Chanel dresses, I wanted to create another version of it with an oval neckline, a classy A-line skirt that has an overlap with a small slit, and decorated with some pretty tweed fringe. Of course, we'll be using my Daphne dress PDF sewing pattern, so to follow along, get yours at the link below in the description. And use this code here on the screen for 50% off the pattern on Etsy for the first 24 hours. Here are the materials you'll need. And please refer to your instructional booklet that comes with your pattern to choose your right size and print and assemble the pattern perfectly, as well as follow all the cutting instructions. And the steps for the whole sewing process of the dress are in there. For this dress, you'll need a soft woven fabric that's medium weight and will hold its shape pretty well. It shouldn't be see-through or stretchy, so here I'm using a chenille tweed. You can use something like a brocade, a velvet, even linen or a denim. Our pattern pieces are the front, back, skirt front right, skirt front left, the skirt back, and also the optional fringe decor bias, as well as our corresponding lining pieces. Okay, let's get to sewing. First things first, we need to interface our pattern pieces for stabilization purposes. If you're using a more flimsy tweed, you'll need to interface all the pieces fully. Then use a 1 cm or 3/8 inch wide strip of fusible stay tape, this is the one I'm using, to stabilize the seam allowances of the neckline and the armhole of pieces 1 and 2. Also, on piece 2, use a 3 cm wide strip to interface the center back edge to stabilize it for our closure. And for the skirt pieces 3, 4, and 5, interface the angled edge and the waistline. And then on piece 5, we're also going to reinforce the center back edge. Our first sewing step will be to pin and sew the darts at the back and the front bodice pieces. I'll show you the lining first so it's easier to see. Transfer the dart points and match up the marks and fold. You can mark a guideline if you like. Now for the front bodice pieces, I'll show you another way of marking your darts. Cut one side of the dart like this and fold it away, and then mark that leg of the dart on your fabric. Fold it in the middle so you can mark the center of the dart as well. And then repeat this for the other side. And now we can simply fold it according to the drawn lines and pin in place. And here I'm doing the same with my main fabric. Sew darts, making back stitches at the bottom. Then on the shell, press the bust darts down and the waistline darts towards the center. Use a pressing cloth if your fabric requires some extra care. And then for the lining, you want to press the bust darts up with the waist darts towards the side seam. So basically pressing the darts in opposite directions from the shell to minimize bulk. Now place the front and back right sides together and pin the shoulder seams. Do the same to the lining and sew with 1.2 cm or ½ inch seam allowances. After this, press the shoulder seams open and we're going to trim away the corners of the seam allowances for a clean finish. This time we're going to pin the lining and the shell right sides together at the neckline, matching the shoulder seam and the center front mark. Sew the neckline from the shell side, the seam allowances being 1.2 centimeters. Now turn to the right side and understitch the lining, turning the seam allowances towards the lining. After, trim the seam allowances in half, leaving just about 5 millimeters. And clip the seam allowances at the curve if needed. Then press the neckline, making sure the fabric is lying nicely. And use a wooden tailor's clapper to cool the fabric down. And now we can true or correct the armhole edges. The lining shouldn't stick out or be visible underneath the shell. It should actually be 1 or 2 millimeters smaller than the shell. So flipping the dress to the right side, flip the lining over and pin it right sides together at the armhole edge like this. Sew the armhole from the dress side and trim the seam allowances in half, leaving about 5 millimeters, and clip at the curve. Turn to the right side and understitch the lining, turning the seam allowances towards the lining. Sew just until you can, starting from the front in, and then from the back in. Sew both armholes, and now, with some patience, turn the bodice out to the right side and press the armholes. Pin the lining to the shell along all edges of the front and back bodice, making sure that the lining lays freely with ease, not being tight. Here it is. And now stay stitch all around 1 centimeter or 3/8 of an inch from the edge. Then you can either use a biased binding to finish the edges or use a serger or overlocker. After this, press all the edges. Take the shell and the lining pieces of the skirt back and place them wrong sides together and pin all around. Make sure not to stretch the lining, just leave the lining loose with ease. And if you like, trim the main fabric if it sticks out. Stay stitch all around from the right side, 1 centimeter from the edge, and then use a biased binding to finish the edges, or again use a serger or overlocker just like you finished the bodice. Then press all the edges. And place the halves of the back skirt right sides together. Pin down starting from the closure mark, which is about 20 centimeters or 8 inches from the waist. And sew the center back seam. The seam allowances are 2 centimeters or 3/4 of an inch for the center back seam, so there's room for adjustment if needed. We want to press the seam open and then continue to press the same seam allowances of 2 centimeters up along the closure edge, and this crease will be our guideline later on. Now take piece number 4, the front left shell and its lining piece, and place them right sides together and pin along the angled edge like this. Then after sewing that pinned edge from the shell side, understitch the lining from the right side and trim the seam allowances. Now we can press it, making sure that the main fabric is slightly visible from this side. And pin together all the edges without pulling the lining to fit. Sew and serge all around the edges and press. And now we're going to repeat the same steps for piece number 3, the front right shell, pinning, sewing, and understitching the straight edge first, and then sew the rest. As you can see, the lining is loose, as it should be. And here are both of our front skirt pieces. Up from the bottom edge of piece 4, measure 15 to 17 centimeters, it's around 6 inches, and place a pin. You want to keep the seam allowances of 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch, so place the pins at that distance all along the edge. Here's where my marking goes. Now place this next detail right on top of it at that distance. Here's where my 6-inch mark is, so I'll pin the 2 skirt pieces together. And then pin the rest of the skirt together in this position. So, joining our front skirt pieces together just up to our pinned point. Right sides together, pin the skirt back pieces to the back bodice at the waistline. Sew them together with seam allowances of 1.2 centimeters. Now press the seam open. And also press the seam allowances for the closure. This crease is a guideline for us. Now take your 22-inch zipper, straighten it out if needed, open it, and place it right sides together with the dress. The zipper teeth should be 2 centimeters away from the edge, following the pressed crease line, and 1.5 to 2 centimeters down from the top edge. Pin one side, and then, changing to an invisible zipper machine foot, sew the zipper. Now with the zipper closed, transfer the marks of the waist, start, and end points to the unsewn side of the zipper tape, and open the zipper so that we can pin the other side of the zipper to the dress, matching all of the marks. Now we can sew the other side of the zipper tape, making sure all of our marks are matching up. And then change the machine foot to a regular one so that we can sew the zipper tape to the seam allowances to secure it. At the top edge, you want to fold the zipper tape over the seam allowances and sew it down, and then continue to sew the zipper tape to the seam allowances of the dress. Repeat to both sides. Check how it looks. And then you can secure the closure seam allowances at the neckline with a few hand stitches or machine stitches, and even place an iron hook up here. Also secure the seam allowances to the waistline seam by hand or by machine stitching, just like this. And we sewed our zipper with everything matching perfectly from the right and the wrong side. Press everything flat. Now here's our front waist seam, and we're going to mark the centers of the bodice and the skirt front. Pin the bodice to the skirt right sides together, matching our center marks, and sew the waist seam, and then press that seam open. Now for our side seams. Place the front and back right sides together and pin the side seams matching the armhole and waistline seams. Now you'll know your desired seam allowances if you've made a sample previously, but here I have 2 centimeter seam allowances, with which I will now sew. And remember that if you don't have a serger, you can use a bias tape to finish all of your edges like so. And press the side seams open, and I'm using a pressing cloth here. Here's what our dress looks like so far, and now we're going to secure or reinforce the seam allowances at the armhole and waistline, just like this. With the dress laying right side up, take some twill tape and place it over the serger or overlocked seam and sew it, folding the ends underneath at the start and end. Like this. Then once you're finished, turn the tape to the wrong side, pin, and press it flat all around. Then sew this other edge of the twill tape. Press the hem all around, giving our dress a crisp, neat finish. Now this is optional, but for a little something extra, I'm going to add some fringe decor to the slit of the skirt. Measure the length of the overlapping skirt piece and cut 2 strips on a bias equaling that length, 2.5 to 3 centimeters wide, or wider if you prefer. And make sure you're not stretching them out. Place the pieces over each other and baste them together in the middle, making sure to keep the measured length as the bias cut can slightly stretch out. And on the sewing machine, place a zigzag stitch in the middle or 2 straight stitches 5 millimeters apart. Here's where my 2 stitches lay. Once they're sewn together, use a seam ripper to unravel the strip, fluffing it all out to your desired look. Give it a nice little trim, cutting off any longer threads. Pin it to where you'd like it to sit, and sew it by hand to the skirt. And in the same way, you can make a fringe for the neckline as well if you like. And of course, giving your entire garment a finishing press like always, we are done with our charming Daphne dress. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this inspires you to sew this lovely piece yourself. I know you'll love it. You can get the PDF downloadable sewing pattern that I used below at the link in the description of the video, and happy sewing!